I'm Shani, a Momentum sister from Ra'anana. Since my first Momentum trip in 2018, I've been lucky enough to experience Momentum 4 times. I'm thrilled to be kicking off Momentum's Yom HaAtzmaut Momentum Boosts. We have an exciting schedule up ahead with 7 extraordinary Momentum Boosts. Before we begin, I'd love to share what Yom HaAtzmaut means to me. First of all, Yom HaAtzmaut is about being grateful to my grandparents and everyone else who built Israel and made it possible for me to live here and raise my children here as free individuals. It means feeling happiness, gratitude, and pride, and togetherness and unity with everyone who sees Israel as their home. And now, let's talk about our 4 goals at Momentum. To connect to Jewish values, to engage with Israel, to take action, and to foster unity without uniformity. Each Momentum Boost relates to one of these goals in order to inspire both us and our families. And while inspiration is wonderful, we know that taking action is critical to making a difference. First, we can take action with ourselves and our families, and then we can help transform our communities and the world. Momentum Boost daily webinars cover a wide range of topics that help us grow and motivate us to be the best that we can be. During each of today's Momentum's Boosts, we'll be engaging with Israel in celebration of Yom HaAtzmaut. So let's get started. It's time for today's first boost. For this webinar, we're so excited to welcome Momentum trip leader Nili Couzens. Nili is an international motivational speaker, Jewish educator, the founding director of Jewish Life Seminars, and a past director of the Women's Division in Philadelphia. Nili and her husband have 6 children and live in Israel. Welcome, Nili.
Hello, thank you, Shani, for that amazing introduction. So sweet. And I loved hearing what you said about being grateful to your family and sort of you being a part of Israel now is due to the people who came before you. I'm an American who moved to Israel about 5 years ago. So I used to tell people when I would come to Israel to visit, and they would say, like, Nili is a very Israeli name. So they would say, oh, were you born here? And I would say, like, halavai, like, I wish I was born here. But I was born in America. So I have a sort of different, point of entry into Israeli society. I wasn't raised here. I'm not an Israeli. I'm striving. But, as an American Jew being in Israel, one of my rabbis once said to me, he said, Israel's not just for Israelis. Israel's for all Jews. And one of the amazing things about being in Israel, I think for anybody, is you hear all the different languages of the Jewish people coming home from all different countries around the world. You see the Ethiopians and the Russians and the French Jews, and you hear Spanish, and you hear all different accents of English from South Africa and Australia and England and America. And it is this really incredible privilege to be witnessing all of these prophecies that are thousands of years old coming true right before your eyes. So today on Yom HaAtzmaut, for me as an American who, thank God, moved here, there is this sort of perspective, this prism of history and of the international Jewish people, being connected, like Shani said, unity without uniformity, that we're all here. We're not all Israelis. We don't all speak Hebrew. I'm thanking my grandparents for everything they gave me in terms of Jewish values, but they're not the ones who, like, I'm like the dumb immigrant, to my kids. We moved here 5 years ago. So my kids are, they have homeschool now, like, Corona, like everybody around the world, another unity without uniformity. We're all going through the same thing, no matter where we are in the world. So they have all these school sheets they need to print out, for class. So my daughter has, she's taking science, I guess it's biology. So she said, oh, can you print this out? So we print out these 3 sheets. So of course it's all in Hebrew. Hello, we're in Israel. But it's all about the heart and the 4 chambers of the heart and what they do, but it's all in Hebrew. And I'm looking at it like, she thinks she lives here. Yeah, it was like, and I brought it to her and I was like, wow, you're learning science in Hebrew. And she looked at me like, hello. Like, it is an incredible moment. You know, I was raised, I'm sure like many of you all over the world, I was raised to value Israel and to the flag and coming here and the Jewish people. I was raised going to Soviet Jewry rallies, and you know, it was a Jew is a Jew is a Jew. And Israel is, I remember when I was growing up, whenever Israel would come on the news, my mom would go, shh, Israel. And you froze, man. You did not move. When Israel came on the news, that was it. I remember the day of my bat mitzvah. It was 1982. Yeah, I'm 50. You can do the math. I'll do the math for you. 1982. It was June, I think June 6th, 1982 was the day about my bat mitzvah. And we did like a party in the backyard, like one of these things. And it was the day that Israel invaded Lebanon, I think. I could be getting the details wrong. It's a little murky. But it was that there was a war was starting in Israel. Well, everyone spent the entire bat mitzvah going back to the television in the kitchen because, shh, Israel. Like, it didn't even occur to me that that was weird, because bat mitzvah, you know, so what? Israel is at war. That was number one priority. It didn't occur to me that it should be any different. So how we relate to Israel from all over the world will be different through the prism, but we all have in common is we're all the Jewish people, and this is our homeland. And the incredible thing is that this was prophesied thousands and thousands of years ago. The first time we see the land of Israel is when Abraham, my grandfather and yours, Avraham Avinu, Abraham our forefather, right? He's living in the Middle East, not in Israel. And God says to him, Lech Lecha, which means you got to go. You got to leave your father's house, and you have to leave everything you know that's familiar. You have to leave the culture that you know. You have to leave everything you were brought up with, and you need to go to Israel. And we're taught that mystically, the Kabbalah tells us that just like we have physical genetics, there's also a spiritual genetics. So physical genetics, the Jewish people, we are a nation. We come from the same ancestors. So genetically, we all have the similar DNA. They did a study recently meaning in the last 5-10 years, of priests, Kohanim, who the Torah tells us are all descended from Aaron, the high priest. Moses' older brother was the first priest, the first Kohen, and all Kohanim are descended from him. So anybody who is a Kohen today, my father, Alav Shalom, was a Kohen. Anybody who's a Kohen means you are a descendant of one person, of Aaron, the high priest, and Moshe was your uncle. Like, that's what that means. So they did a study to see if there would be a genetic similarity between Kohanim. And guess what they found? Yes, there is. So as a Jewish people who's like, well, yeah, they're all Kohanim. That means we're all, like, that's what that means. But for modern science to back it up was, you know, an amazing moment to have modern science back up what we know to be true. So Abraham, right, 1,000 years before that, Abraham, our forefather, was told, go. So the same way we share the same way that we share physical genetics, we also share spiritual genetics. We have a concept when we learn the Torah that says, Ma'aseh avot siman labanim, which means what the fathers did is a sign for the children of what your spiritual DNA is, of what's going to actually happen in the future. So mystically, we're taught Abraham, our forefather, had to leave his homeland and everything that was familiar to him and go to Israel, because one day in the future, the Jewish people will need to do that. We'll need to leave everything that's familiar to us and move to Israel. Now, I'm not telling anybody to move to Israel. This is not an Aliyah talk. That's not what this is about. What this is about is understanding our connection to each other, understanding our nationhood, that no matter where we live, we all know Israel's home. We all know there's something special about the land of Israel. There's something special about, everybody says Shabbat Shalom. There's something special about Pesach is the national holiday here. I remember when I was living here, when I was first married, there was like fax machines, like it was like before email had really taken off. That's how old I am. So there was this one day where like the phone kept ringing, which is like, not unusual. If you wanted to speak to anybody, you had to actually call them. You couldn't WhatsApp or text, like you had to call them. And we'd speak to our family, every couple of weeks or whatever. But there was this one morning where like family kept calling us. The first time we're like, hey, how you doing? And the next time we're like, oh my gosh, it's so weird. So-and-so just called us. And the third time we were like, what's going on? Why is everybody calling us on like the same, window? And they're like, it's Thanksgiving. Everybody's home. And we were like, oh. And we were like cracking up because we had grown up. Thanksgiving looms very large in the American mind and heart, family memories and turkey and the game. And it's just Thanksgiving is the warm fuzzies. And here we were living in Israel. We didn't even know it was Thanksgiving. And I remember it really hit me that if I could go to a different country and not even know it was this really important national holiday, so that means it's not inherently a part of me. Because a birthday is a birthday. I'm not forgetting my mom's birthday no matter where I am. And Shabbat is Shabbat, and Passover is Passover, and an anniversary is an anniversary, because those things are inherently a part of who I am. But it sort of struck me like, my ancestors lived in Poland for maybe 1,000 years. I couldn't tell you one Polish national holiday. I don't know. It's not who I am. It's who they were. It's not who I am. Other ancestors came from Austria. I don't know any Austrian holidays. I'm sure there are. I'm sure when my ancestors lived there, they celebrated them. If I had been a French Jew, I'd probably feel very connected to Bastille Day and French food and croissants, and all that would be a part of my identity because I'd be a French Jew. As an American Jew, people say you're either an American Jew or a Jewish American. What's the difference? The difference is what's the noun and what's the adjective. I was also an English major. What's the noun and what's the adjective? If you're an American Jew, it means I am a Jew who was born in America. If you say I'm a Jewish American, that's saying I am an American. I'm also, my description is Jewish, but who I am, the noun, that's American. And this circles back to our Jewish identity. Where do we plant both feet? The Jewish people has lived all over the world. Somebody once said to me, assimilation is living someone else's memories. Now, I'm all for whatever country you live in, whether it's South Africa or it's America or it's Russia, like God bless America. I love America. It's, I'm apple pie through and through. I'm an American. But who am I at my core? My mother said one time, she was at some conference or weekend or something, and they had to stand up and say like one word to describe themselves. So one person stood up and said, I am a doctor. And one person stood up and said like, I am a mother. That was where they felt their identity came from. And my mother stood up and she said, I am a Jew. That grounding, that sentiment, that Jewish identity is what keeps us on the straight and narrow. There's a prophecy that goes back thousands of years. Rachel, our mother, it says that she died in childbirth on the road. The family was headed. We pick up the story from the Torah. They're heading back from outside of Israel into Israel. And Rachel is 9 months pregnant, and she gives birth to Binyamin, her second son, obviously her last child. She dies in childbirth, giving birth to Binyamin, and she's buried on the side of the road. And her only other child, Yosef, a lot of you know who Joseph is, right? Joseph, Technicolor Dreamcoat, that's Joseph, the one who was sold into slavery. Joseph was 8 years old at the time. Too young to really understand what's going on. But later, he said to his father, why did you bury my mother on the side of the road? We were so close to the family burial plot, the cave in Hebron. It's not that far. If you go today to visit these places, they're 20 minutes apart. You know, it's not far. Why didn't you bury her? It's like respectful. Like, bury my mother in the family burial plot. Why did you bury her on the side of the road? And there's a medrash that answers this question. Fast forward 1,000 years. The Jewish temple has been destroyed. First temple's in flames. And the Jewish people are being led north to Babylon in chains. And they're not able to stop or pray or do anything. But as they're on the road, they pass by the grave of Rachel, because she's buried right on the side of the road. Now, the Medrash tells us up in heaven, there's an uproar going on. The temple is burning, and the streets are flowing with Jewish blood. And the Jews the survivors of this massacre are being led in chains to prison and to exile in Babylonia, to slavery, to God knows what. And it says up in heaven, all of the patriarchs and the matriarchs, whatever this means, went before God and begged him to have mercy on the Jewish people. And it says that Abraham went before God and he said, I gave up everything to listen to you, and I found you in a pagan, idol-worshiping world. I left everything to go to the land of Israel and to follow you, and you made me a promise that my children would be as many as the stars of the sky, and look at them now. For me, you bring my children home. And God says, nope, not enough. And Isaac comes forward and he says, I was willing to be brought up as a sacrifice. Isaac was in his 30s at the time of the sacrifice of Isaac, not a child like you see sometimes in the coloring books. He was a grown man. He was a willing participant in that whole complicated story, which is not our topic now. But he says, I was willing to give my life for the Jewish people. Again, you see that concept of what the fathers did as a sign for the children, right? How many times have the Jewish people been willing to give their lives for the Jewish people? And Isaac says, I was willing to do that, to make the ultimate sacrifice. For me, you bring my children home. And it says God turned away. Nope. And one by one, the patriarchs, the matriarchs, everyone gets up. There's an uproar, and God is not being moved by anyone's arguments until Rachel gets up. And Rachel says to God, I'm going to paraphrase, but she says to God, what are you so upset about? The Jewish people brought an idol into the temple, but a rival in your relationship with them, they brought something else in that threatened that. She said, I did that. I was going to marry Jacob, the love of my life. And I saw my older sister Leah standing on the side, and I knew she'd be humiliated. And I let her marry my husband. My husband, I brought a rival into my home. If I can do it, you can do it. And for me, you bring my children home. And it said that God says, Rachel, for you, I'll bring them home. And there's a beautiful prophecy that says, God says to Rachel, Mini kolech mi bechi ve'enayich mi dim'a, which means stop your voice from crying and your eyes from shedding tears. So the commentators jump on that. They say, why the double language? Just say, stop crying. Why don't you say, stop your voice from crying, stop your eyes from shedding tears? Why both? And they give this beautiful answer. They say, when the Jewish people finally come home, which we are witnessing today on a daily basis, Google Nefesh B'Nefesh, which is an amazing organization that promotes Aliyah from America and all over the world. It's now grown Canada and England and everywhere. And you see the Jewish people coming home, celebrating with Israeli flags from everywhere, every country in the world. This prophecy that was made to Rachel thousands of years ago is coming true at Ben Gurion Airport on a daily basis. Maybe not now because of Corona, but other than that, it is coming true all the time. Google it. You'll see them landing and trust me, you'll cry your eyes out. It's unbelievable. But there's two ways of coming home. So the commentators say, and this is, remember, thousands of years old. It says the Jewish people will come home. V'shavu banim ligvulam.
and the children will return to their borders. Physically, we'll all come back. And it says that Rachel will be up in heaven watching this, and she'll look down at her children and she'll say, what happened to them? These are my children? I don't even recognize them. Then not only do we leave the land of Israel, but we maybe forgot what it means to be a part of the Jewish people, because assimilation has been very long and very hard. All of the chapters that the Jewish people has been through, we have not had an easy time of it. And maybe we come back a little broken, a little forgetful of who we are and what's our identity and what do we stand for. Am I a Jew? Am I American? Am I Russian? Who am I? And we come back and maybe we don't remember all of the Jewish values that our great-great-great-great-grandparents took for granted naturally. And God says to Rachel, two kinds of comforting. One, your children will physically come back to their borders. And two, they'll come back to their Jewish identity too. And we see both things happening today. You know, we've all been on the momentum journey. Thank God, I'm privileged. Privilege is a huge, humbling honor to be able to do anywhere between 3, 4, 5, 6 momentum trips a year. And I go to you and I visit you in your cities and with the conferences. And it is the Jewish people coming back to their borders in every way. We have to have the eyes to see the miracles that are happening before our eyes. Because Jewish history doesn't go like this. Jewish history goes like this. And you see that very much in the way Yom HaAtzmaut is set up. You don't see it in America. See, when I was living, and maybe other countries, I don't know, but in America, you know, growing up, Yom HaAtzmaut was like a fun day at school. You know, we all wore blue and white, and we didn't have to have classes, and we had assemblies, and we had field games, and, you know, we ate falafel. We did really fun things. But it wasn't the same as really getting it. So let me tell you what it's like here. The 24 hours before Yom HaAtzmaut, Independence Day, is Yom HaZikaron, which means Remembrance Day. And in Yom HaZikaron, what Israel as a nation does is we remember both the soldiers who have fallen in defense of the state of Israel and also terror victims who have fallen for being here, for being Jews in the land of Israel. And the juxtaposition of these two, you know, as an American, when you first come, it's shocking because Yom HaZikaron is, see, it's not like Memorial Day in America for all my Americans out there. Memorial Day in America is like an excuse for a barbecue, and it's the first day of summer. That's what Memorial Day is. It means Monday in May, you get off, and summer's here, yay, let's go to the beach. That's what it is. Very few Americans, percentage-wise, know somebody who died in a war. It's very distant from us, and the country's so large. And thank God wars are so far back in our rear view mirror that even though, I had one great uncle who, it's very removed. Not so in Israel. In Israel, everyone knows someone who lost someone in a war. It's right there. I remember the first time I was here for Yom HaZikaron, I was a student in Hebrew U. I was a junior in college, and I had gone on the March of the Living to Poland. So Yom HaShoah, is the Holocaust Remembrance Day, is 1 week before Yom HaZikaron. So Yom HaShoah, I was standing in Auschwitz with Israeli flags, kids from literally all over the world, Israeli flags everywhere, all over Auschwitz, thousands of students. I mean, it was an unbelievable experience. Elie Wiesel spoke, another story for another time, mind-blowing. Okay, now fast forward, it's Yom HaZikaron, and I'm an American student overseas in Israel for a semester, and so Yom HaZikaron, you always want to do whatever the country's doing when you're that, student studying abroad. So everybody went to Har Herzl. So that was just the thing to do. Okay, let's go to Har Herzl, let's see what that's like. So we go to Har Herzl. I've never seen anything like it in my life. The place was packed. They were giving out flowers, like as you walked in, there were flowers everywhere. The place is jam-packed. There's thousands and thousands of people there. So I'm with a bunch of my friends. We're not talking so much because it's sad and it's heavy, and we don't really know what's going on. So we're a little bit, feeling a little insecure, a little out of place, but we want to be there because it's Jewish. But do we belong there because we're not Israeli? And it was just, we walk in. I did not know this when I walked in. All of the graves in Har Herzl look like beds. They're not just tombstones. It's a raised bed, and the tombstone looks like a pillow. And we're walking around, and every grave is filled with people. And they're all putting flowers, and I see this one man bend over and kiss the pillow, the headstone of the grave. Maybe it was his son, I don't know. And I lost it. It was so heavy. And then night falls, and it's Yom HaAtzmaut. And you've never seen such joy, and you've never seen such celebration. And I was like, how do you do that? How do you go from so sad to so happy? This is what the Israeli public does. Yom HaZikaron, you're so heartbroken because you lost somebody. It's not distant. You lost somebody. And then night falls, and it's Yom HaAtzmaut, and you're celebrating 4th of July. But a 4th of July where you were at July 4th, 1776. I mean, it's insane. Everybody feels the joy. That's the heart of a Jew. We feel the pain, but we feel the joy. And we celebrate life so much because it's so precious to us. Whether we live in Israel or America or South Africa or Russia or Brazil or wherever it is that we live, Israel is the story of the Jewish people, but in real time in the 21st century. It's happening now. And each of us, no matter where we are, we have a part of it. Because in being a Jew, no matter where we live, we connect back to this place. I hope all of you have, had the privilege of coming to Israel on the Momentum trip. I hope that you bring your families, because being here, seeing everybody say Shabbat Shalom, and seeing the buses wishing you Shabbat Shalom, to see, Old City of Jerusalem as an exit on the highway. This isn't a dusty Bible prophecy anymore. This is real life. The buses take you to the Western Wall. This is a miracle. And to be here, for a week or for a summer, or to live here, is being part of the unfolding of the Jewish story. And we're all a part of that. We're all a part of that. We just have to find our way and stand there. The Jew should be the noun and not the adjective, no matter where we are. So I wish all of you a happy, happy, happy Yom HaAtzmaut, and come back to Israel soon, next year in Jerusalem.